There are a couple things that you can think about to make sure you figure out what size of a new piece of furniture or if a new piece of furniture will fit in your space. Hi everyone, it's Carol from Discover Interior Design and I'm so glad you're here. Well, in this video, we're going to be talking about a couple things to do and a couple things to think about before you buy that new piece of furniture. And whether that's figuring out a size that will work for you, or if there's this new piece of furniture that you just really love and you want to check and see if it will fit in your home. So one thing to think about is that we want to make sure that we figure out where we are going to place this new piece of furniture, because that will help us figure out a size or figure out if a piece of furniture will fit in that place. And so the first thing is just to take a look at your space. And there are a couple scenarios that we could think about. One of them would be really straightforward. You just want to replace an existing piece of furniture with the same size, and you also want it to just be in that same spot. So maybe you want to replace your dining room table. You love the size and where it's located, and so you just want to update everything and just buy a new table that's the same size. The other scenario is maybe you want to buy a brand new piece of furniture that you haven't had in your house before. Maybe you saw this really cool accent chair and you'd love to have this in your living room or in your bedroom. And so you want to figure out what will fit or where that will go. And another scenario would be maybe you want to replace something, but you want to get a size that's larger. So you'll have to figure out if buying a new bar stool that's a little larger than what you already have will fit. And if you need some ideas about space planning and furniture layouts, I'll leave the link to my space planning playlist in this video's description. So when you have a place in mind, or maybe even two different options of where you could place this piece of furniture, then there are some measurements that you'll want to take so that you can either figure out what size will fit there, or just to see if that new accent chair or that new table will fit where you want it to fit. And the first thing that we want to think about when we're taking measurements for furniture is that we want to find out what is the overall space that we have for a piece of furniture. And overall space includes the actual size of that piece of furniture, some wiggle room, and also some functional space. So the actual size of a piece of furniture includes the width, the depth, and the height of a piece of furniture. And just as a reminder, furniture is always listed in inches or centimeters. And then wiggle room is the space that we want to leave around every piece of furniture that we put in our home. And wiggle room, sometimes I just think of as breathing room for a piece of furniture, so that we don't have pieces of furniture ideally right up against each other, that there's a little bit of space in between everything. And usually what I think of is leaving 1 to 2 inches. So, in between a sofa and a side table, 1 to 2 inches, just so there is some breathing space there and wiggle room. And then the other part of that overall space is the functional space that we need to set aside. This is the space or the clearance that we need to leave around a piece of furniture so that it is functional. And how much clearance you need, how much space you need to set aside a piece of furniture really depends upon the type of furniture that it is, where it's located, and what's around it. And when we are taking measurements, it's really helpful if we can be as accurate as possible. And the ideal situation is if we can just kind of figure out, okay, what's the largest or the smallest size of furniture that we can fit within an area so that everything will be comfortable and functional. And so when we are taking measurements, keep that in mind. What would be the smallest size or what would be the largest size? Because when we are out shopping for things, we will have to kind of go with what sizes are out there unless we have something custom made. So just kind of keep that in mind. Have some flexibility, and most importantly, just to kind of find out how much space you have in your room so we can have a piece of furniture that will make sense there. And when you are measuring anything in your home, including furniture, just remember that old carpentry proverb, which is measure twice and then cut once. And that's good advice so that we are comfortable that the measurements that we're taking are accurate. So to think about overall space and what size of furniture will fit, let's take a look at those scenarios that I mentioned, where we either want to replace an existing piece of furniture in the same location, the same size, or we want to bring in a new piece of furniture, or maybe we want to get a larger size of furniture. In this first scenario, we are going to take a look at replacing an existing sofa with the same size and in the same spot. So the first thing that we want to do is kind of take a look at our current sofa and take measurements of your existing sofa. So the width, the depth, and the height. Then kind of assess how everything is set up in that seating arrangement. Do you have wiggle room around the sofa? Is there 1 or 2 inches in between the wall and the sofa? Or are there 1 or 2 inches in between side tables on either side? Just kind of check and see how all that is working. Also, for the functional space, is there enough clearance, say in front of the sofa, before you have your coffee table? In general, it's nice to have 18 inches in front of a sofa before you have your coffee table. Then what I would do is take an overall measurement of that entire area. So that would mean your sofa with a couple inches of wiggle room on all sides, plus any clearance that you have. So you can kind of get an estimate, an overall size of how much space you have to work with. Even though you are replacing that sofa with the same size, you still want to find out what you're working with. So just to get an estimate of the overall size, the overall area that you have for a new sofa. So if we have an 84-inch size sofa, maybe an area of 88 inches by 62 inches will give us an idea of how much space you have. So when you have an idea of how much space you have, the overall space that you can set aside for a new sofa, then you're ready to go shopping. But one thing that you want to keep in mind is that even though maybe you are looking for a sofa in a standard size, maybe 84 inches wide, that things are going to vary depending upon the style of sofa that you buy. So unless you are buying the exact same sofa, things are going to vary a little bit, and sometimes that can make a difference in how things fit. One thing that could change is how deep a sofa is, because depending upon the style of that sofa and the cushioning and how everything is designed, that may be less deep than what you already have, or maybe it'll be more deep. So when you're out looking for another sofa in the same size, keep that in mind. There's probably going to be a little bit of variation, maybe even in how wide something is or even how deep it is. So with this scenario where we just want to replace the sofa with the same size, just keep in mind that things will vary a little bit when you're out shopping and looking for that new sofa. And in this next scenario, we're going to start where maybe we see a new piece of furniture out there that we'd love to add to our home. Maybe we see like a cool bookshelf, and gosh, that would be really neat to place it at the end of the hallway, kind of near our entryway. But we don't know for sure if it's going to fit in there. But the cool thing about this is that we know the size of the bookshelf so that we can go back and take some measurements to kind of see how all of that will work. So in this example, we have a bookshelf that is 15 inches wide by 11 inches deep and 84 inches high. And we want to take a look at the ideal location, which would be at the end of the hallway. And the first thing that we'll want to do is to measure the width of that wall to even see if that bookshelf will fit there. And so when we take measurements of this wall, we are finding out that that wall is 40 inches wide, which is great because now we know that bookshelf will fit there. And say if it was kind of a close call, maybe the bookshelf is 36 inches wide. That would still fit on that wall. And what I want you to keep in mind is that we still want to make sure that we have some wiggle room on either side of the bookshelf. So when you have something on a wall, say like a bookshelf, it's helpful to make sure that that piece of furniture isn't as wide as the wall. So it's just inset, even just by 1 or 2 inches, so that it's easy to move around that piece of furniture. But in our example, we have plenty of space. But the other part that's maybe more crucial in this setup is making sure that there's plenty of clearance on the one side as well as in front of the bookcase, because we don't want to block any sort of walkways or pathways that are around that bookcase. So in this example, we want to make sure that there's at least 30 inches out from that bookcase, out from the side, and also out from the front of the bookcase to make sure that we can easily move around the bookcase or, easily stand in front of the bookcase and grab something. And so when you are bringing in a new piece of furniture into a room, go back to where you'd love to have that new piece of furniture. Take some measurements knowing the actual size of that piece of furniture and add in some wiggle room and make sure that there's plenty of clearance or space in front of it or on the sides so that it is also functional. And in this scenario, this bookcase will fit there and there's plenty of space to walk around it and enjoy the bookcase. And then in this scenario, we're going to take a look at replacing an existing piece of furniture with something that's larger. And for this example, we'll talk about replacing a full-size bed with a queen-size bed. So the first thing that you'll want to have is knowing maybe the standard size of a queen-size mattress, just as a starting point. And in general, usually a queen-size mattress is 60 inches wide by 80 inches long. And a full-size bed is usually around 54 inches wide by 75 inches long. So right away, we're going to know that that bed is going to be wider as well as longer than your existing bed. So what I would recommend doing is looking at your bedroom and just by using the queen-size mattress size just as a starting point to get an idea if that will fit in your room in that same location or on another wall. And also take a look at if you have bedside tables and if you would still have room for those bedside tables. So that would mean adding in some wiggle room around that standard mattress size, as well as clearance and space around the queen size bed. And that would mean, is there 30 to 36 inches on the sides or at the foot of the bed so that you can easily get in and out of the bed or walk around the bed. So if you can add in some wiggle room and the clearance around that bed so you can get an idea of the overall amount of space that you have for that queen size bed, that is a good starting point. But one thing that you'll need to keep in mind is that you'll want to find out the actual sizes of the designs that you're looking at because of the framing or of the headboard or anything else that's going on with the design of that bed. That takes up space. That is going to be larger than just the size of the mattress. When you want to replace an existing piece of furniture but with a larger size, be sure to look to see what's out there, what designs you like. Look for 1 or 2 different styles and find out the actual sizes of those beds as we are talking about in this example. So we know exactly how large that bed is going to be before we make a decision on how that's going to fit in the room or even where we can fit that piece of furniture in the room. And when you are taking all these measurements, just be sure to write everything down and then take some photos of your room, because that's a nice reminder when you're out and about looking for things that you can refer back to your photo to remind yourself of what's going on in your room and what all that looks like. And also that's helpful to show the salesperson, because then they can visualize what you have going on in your room and they'll be able to help you even more. And then if you are maybe thinking of two different options, two different sizes of something, well, one way to think about it is it might be nice to have a little bit more wiggle room. So if one size is just a little smaller, even just a couple inches, can help to create a more functional space and a more comfortable space. So just kind of keep that in mind. And let me know what you thought about when you bought a new piece of furniture and how you thought about what size will fit, or if a new piece of furniture was going to fit in your space, what you did to kind of check everything to make sure it will all make sense. So please share your suggestions and ideas in the comments. Thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.